Yeah, but I recognize the voice. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming.
Hi, Joan.
Hi, Al.
I guess it's just the two of us.
Yeah, we got the Hammond Asset Room. Somebody from QA&M is on. I think they're trying to figure out how to present now. So
Hammond Asset Room, you need to unmute yourselves and you need to hit the video.
There you go.
All right, I don't have host.
I sent you hosting,
go.
you have to accept it.
Did I accept it? It's not letting me record or mute the room.
You are recording.
Okay. Do I need to mute the room?
No, you don't want the room on.
Okay.
No, do not mute the room.
is Dave in our participants, Dave Spurley?
Not yet.
Okay. Because there are attendees named Dave. Just wondering if
Okay.
you-
All right, I'm in, Joan.
okay, there we go. I thought that was you.
Yeah, I just wasn't allowed in.
Okay. So I can, I guess, host Jeannie, thank you so much for getting us logged in. I just didn't have the host key, but if I'm the host now, I can take it from here.
Okay, I'm not gonna log out just in case.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you. I'm gonna grab my things from over there.
Are we live with the video?
We are live and recording, yes.
Okay, I'd like to open up the meeting for the regular meeting of the Academy Community Center Building Committee. Apologize for the 15-minute delay. We have had some technical problems, as you might have guessed if you were listening to the chatter just before the meeting opened. So I'd like to call the meeting to order. And with a approval, or with a, need a motion to approve the prior minutes from September 24th.
So moved.
Second.
Are there any comments or changes? Hearing none. Any, all in favor of approving the minutes as submitted? Say aye.
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 Hi.
Aye.
Sounds like unanimous.
I'm abstaining since I was not.
Okay, one
able to
abstention.
attend.
The next item on the meeting are the chair's comments. And the only comment I'd like to make, and I'd like to direct it at Al for the moment, is if we've made any progress finding a replacement for Joe Paradiso. But I'll leave that to you as long as you get that in your in your comments. So liaison reports, that's brings you up immediately, Al.
Nothing for me, Joe.
Any progress in getting a replacement for Joe Paradiso?
I'm sorry, say that again, Joe.
Any progress in getting a replacement for Joe Paradiso, who resigned from the
Yeah, the progress is process. We are starting to interview among several candidates to fill the seat, Joe.
And any idea when that process will be completed?
Optimistically by the next meeting, no promises.
John, when is our next meeting?
Next
The
Tuesday.
next meeting is next week. So,
Oh, yeah,
It's a trick of the calendar, but the meeting is next week.
yeah. We will not have a replacement by next week.
When would rephrase your answer?
Joe, we will not have a replacement by next week.
Okay. Please keep us informed. At the last meeting, I did ask that, oh,
So my name is Matt Gordon, introducing myself. So I'm on the Board of Finance. And so in conjunction with talking with John Picard, our chair, so I will be your new liaison for the Board of Finance.
okay,
And I have nothing to report today.
okay.
welcome, Matt.
Thank you. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else on liaison? I'm sorry, I missed you. It's okay. At the last meeting, I asked that all of our regular agenda includes all the subcommittee updates. And that's in addition to the finance subcommittee. And I think there were a couple that you're on, AJ and Joan. Anything, any progress or anything you need to report that you can report?
So Alicia and I did meet earlier last week and did a review of the plans. We did have some notes to share back with the architects that Alicia had captured. And John, I sent over a couple of questions to you that I haven't seen a response from.
When did you send those? I haven't seen anything.
About a week ago.
Oh, I apologize. I'll look at those.
I can resend that. So we had some questions about some of the logistics of how the building will operate during certain events. So we want to make sure we had clarity on those. So good decisions.
I was holding my full design review notes, because I frankly haven't had time to do a deep dive like I wanted to, but also until we get the report back from Fuss and O'Neill about selective demolition, those finishes. That way I can get design review over with all of those notes. Hopefully they can be incorporated before it goes out to bid. Otherwise, they should be small enough that they can be captured in the bid. But I do think, based on AJ and I's meeting, there are a few programmatical, larger things that we should probably tackle tonight so that the architect can hear it and have a little bit of time to think about it. So I don't know when the appropriate time to do that is. But there were some notes on the larger design that we would like to bring to the discussion.
Would be appropriate, I'm asking you, would we be able to do it now or wait till the QA&M presentation? QA&M section?
Perhaps following QA&M, because I think those findings will inform some of the other questions we had, so we can have a general discussion on the overall design scheme. And I would also like to know where we are in terms of schedule to get that out to bid. So we can hold that for a new agenda.
Hold it for,
Do you want to open?
it would be a new, an item under new business?
Yeah,
Or would it just follow part of the QA&M?
I think it can be 11.A,
Okay.
just following that.
Go ahead.
I move to open the agenda and add an item 11A to discuss the design subcommittee's findings following Fuss and O'Neill's presentation.
Second? I second it. Any comment, questions? All in favor of opening the agenda for 11A? I think we actually need two motions, right? We need to open the agenda, and then we do 11A, or can we do it in one? Where's my parliamentarian?
So you want to do a request to open the agenda approved, and you could say open the agenda to include 11A in one. And then if we
Okay.
all approve it, we'll just get to 11A. So,
So I think I did say that.
Yes.
Okay, and so, and now any questions or comments? All in favor of the agenda as of the motion as noted to open the agenda? Aye.
I,
Any opposed? The motion passes, and we'll open up, we'll add 11A, Design Committee report to new business. Any, is that the only subcommittee that's active at the moment? There was one for stages though, right?
The theater subcommittee,
Theater.
I don't know. Joan is
yeah,
in.
we're waiting to hear back, right, from the consultants on estimated costs, which they knew they were gonna be tight with getting it prior to things going out to bid. So correct me if I'm wrong, John, that was where we stood there. We said,
That's
okay, we need to
correct.
still get numbers on these things. Right.
Yes, I don't know if Brian has an update he can provide on that at this point. Regarding the theater, Brian?
No, I do not have an update from the theater people.
okay, can we
yeah.
try to get that for next week?
Yes, I'll talk to Tom and see if there's any communication with him.
So we'll defer the committee, the theater discussion till next week. Or is there anything else, Joan, that we need to discuss that we would need to discuss?
No, we were waiting. We went through the preliminary, we reviewed that preliminary notes the last meeting, and we're just waiting now on final estimates.
They're supposed to issue a report, if I
And
remember.
so rough numbers, we're not.
John, do you have a date for when that report was due or is due?
They provided their assessment. That report was done. They just still need to provide the cost, the estimated.
Oh, that's
cost.
it's the dollar amount.
Yes, the dollar amount.
And do they have a deadline for that?
They were trying, I don't think they were given a deadline. We had asked to get that as soon as possible.
Can we get a deadline by, let's say,
Try to get it for
by Thursday of this week, so that we can digest it and then discuss it on Monday?
Tuesday.
I think that they
But-
said at the time that it was gonna be tough for us to get it prior to November, correctly, if I'm wrong. If I'm trying to remember the conversation, but they were inundated with other designs that they were deadline on, so it was
And-
our understanding when we left that meeting, it was gonna be a while, but it was gonna be prior to it going out to bid. That was the hope.
And if they can't get it, in time for, for us to digest it and get it and see it by Tuesday, when our next meeting is, find out when it will be available. please.
Right, Brian. Brian, I believe you mentioned Tom, you or Tom were gonna reach out to them, correct?
Yeah, so I did the initial walkthrough with them, but Tom handles the financing end of things, so I might have dropped off on an email, so I'll just check with Tom and see if there's been any additional correspondence since last I had discussed with him.
Was there another subcommittee on abatement? Was that? Or was that,
Environmental.
Environmental?
With Dave.
that was Dave and
Joe.
And Joe, correct.
anything to report, Dave?
No, nothing to report. I guess next week, maybe we'll put it on the agenda to add somebody back into that subcommittee.
Okay,
We don't need to do that today, but next week, maybe we could.
John, could you put that on for next, be sure we get that in our agenda for next week?
Yeah, I'll list them as subcommittees and then each of those.
Yeah, it'd be good to probably list them out individually, that way we don't have to remember it.
That would be helpful to list
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, just to clarify, you want that added after the liaison reports? On the
No,
agenda?
that's where it is now, that's fine. And if there's any discussions, as we had to do earlier with the design committee, if there's any discussions that need to be done later, we can defer the discussion till later in the meeting. The other subcommittee has its own line, which is the finances subcommittee. Is that what you call it? Finance?
I guess so. And we have two lines.
Yes, we do.
And then Ann and Joan, can either or both of you report on the invoice summaries?
We've reviewed the invoice. It is in line with the budget. The packet. Yeah, I mean, and you agree, correct?
Yeah, so we have two invoices today. One is with QA&M Architecture, and they are billing us $60,000 plus reimbursable expenses, reporting that they are 85% of the way through the construction documents phase. We want to approve these invoices separately or both together?
I would just, unless there's some reason not to, then I'd like to do them all together.
Okay.
If there's some controversy, or if you're not recommending approval, then we'll do them separately. If you otherwise put them all in one batch.
Okay, so the second invoice is from SES, Sustainable Engineering Solutions. They are reporting as being 85% of the way through the design phase of their work and are billing us $3,625.
And do you recommend approval?
And yes, I'd like to make a motion that we approve both invoices for payment.
I'll second that.
In favor, any discussion, questions? In favor, say aye.
Oh, I do have one question.
Oh.
Hi. I don't believe we've seen a Collier's invoice recently.
No, you haven't.
All right. We'll leave it at
I don't think
that.
you've seen a Collier's invoice in about 6 months.
All right, so let me tell you what the status of that is. We had been paying a monthly fee based on just a percentage of the total contract cost and the number of months estimated for the project duration. And that changed in some way. I believe the project amounts were summarized by phase of the project. And we got to a point where we had paid funds that were basically concurrent with where we were in the project at that point. The last invoice that we paid was dated December 8th, 2023. And my notes say there's a discussion pending about how the billing will proceed going forward.
All right.
Any comment, John?
No, just, that was, for the contract, that was the last invoice associated with the design phase. And
Okay,
we're still in the design phase, so. No further invoicing of this, although,
so was that, did we get a vote on that, or did the Collier's questions pop up before we voted?
Kind of voted and questioned altogether.
So just to go back and record the vote again, given that information, all in favor of approving this, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none opposed, except for that bleeding sheep in the background. I will, we can approve the invoice.
Sounded like an I to me.
Yeah.
It was a bleating sheep, not a bleed. Any line item answers, line item transfers? Ann,
Nothing today.
Joe, nothing? Okay.
Nope.
Uh,
I have a weak
next item.
connection. That's why I keep muting and shutting the video off, by the way.
Next item on the agenda is the Colliers update.
Okay. Excuse me, we continue to help QAM in the putting together of the bid documents, the specifications. I reached out to the town to get some clarification on some of those associated sections for the front end of the spec, working with Stacy on that. So that's in process. We did, Brian and I did have a discussion, sort of steal maybe a little bit of his thunder for his report, but we had a discussion with Kathleen from Fuss & O'Neill. And following the selective demolition scope of work that was performed, she did inform us that the work to expose the wood floors was successful and ultimately did not require a lot of effort. So that is something that's going to be updated and addressed in their specification package and drawings. She unfortunately did tell us that there were some surprises found with respect to the roofing, roof framing investigative work. So that is something that the structural engineer is presently addressing as part of their modified drawings to address the loading of the mechanical equipment that will be on the roof area. So that is something that Brian may be able to speak to a little bit further. We have also received the two estimates for the CD phase. Those came in last week. We have the reconciliation meeting scheduled for this Friday to review those two estimates. So we'll have an update for Tuesday next week on that. And I think that's everything I have at this point.
We do have a quote from Fuss & O'Neill. Is that something?
Oh, that's under new business.
That's under new business.
Yeah, I was gonna wait till- yeah.
But is that's what I was gonna ask, do you have enough information based on what you've heard or spoken to Fuss & O'Neill so far, that we can legitimately or fully discuss what's in the quote?
Proposal?
Proposal.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Can I request that both estimates and the full report from Fuss & O'Neill be sent to the building committee? So that we know what,
We would,
Usually wait till the reconciliation.
you wait till the reconciliation.
Yes.
can I don't want to overstep, but if I could just,
I think we're gonna have to wait till reconciliation.
okay.
I know we'll have to wait till reconciliation.
Can I
Anything else?
just follow up on that, just so we know what we're prepared for? Is there a large deficit, and do you anticipate the result of that reconciliation impacting the release of the documents for GC bidders at all due to needs for value engineering?
I don't think so, but until we do the reconciliation, it's hard to answer that question.
Okay. But the Fuss & O'Neill report on the hazmat results, can we get that? Do we have that? I don't think I saw that.
Yet. Brian, have you seen the?
I'm on the call.
I'm sorry. Oh,
It's
hi,
okay.
Kathleen. Kathleen can speak to that.
I figured stuff would come up. So when we had a call with Colliers and Quisenberry, we talked about how our priority is getting these bid documents finalized, and we were going to hold off on a results report for the mini removals. So that's why I joined this meeting, so that if you want to discuss our findings, I can at least give you information that will hopefully be useful for you. in the interim while we're plugging away at modifying our bid specifications, if that's okay with the committee.
Makes sense.
I think so. Yeah, I think just the report for the record when it's ready.
And,
Yeah.
and Kathleen will put you, we have a discussion, under new business. So if you could stay with us for just a couple more points, we'll pick it up, on the, under new business.
No problem. Thank you.
And John, do you have anything else?
Not at this time.
Any other questions for Colliers? I did have a request, John. I think I made this before, but can you indicate what items change when you reissue the report? This milestone schedule? I noticed, I know among other things, I noticed the date that, and we've talked about it, the date that we're going to get the bid results back to the Board of Selectmen went from November 2nd to November 9th, and we did talk about that.
December 2nd.
December 2nd.
Yes,
December.
everything is slipped a week, based
Right,
on.
I got that.
Oh.
And I know that, but I know that, but I can't, I don't see it on this paper. I don't see that there's a change. I just see the date change.
Is the date accurate on that?
The date's accurate.
Do you want to see anything that has changed, maybe
Yes.
highlighted?
You want, yeah,
Right.
say you want something, okay.
Yes, that's the,
Okay.
if
Yeah.
there's if a date is changed or, not, I suppose not the comment, but if a date changes, it should be in some way noted, highlighted, would be one way to do it. So that it stands out and we all see it, and I don't have to actually know that what that, and I look for that. But there could be other things that have moved and I just don't pick that up.
Yeah, I can highlight changes that are made to the schedule.
Okay, and there's you have a comment section, so you can even make a comment that could move forward, move back, much more favorable than it's previously expected, would be a good comment.
Yeah, what's your objective? What problem are you trying to solve with that?
I'm trying to watch the schedule, so it doesn't slip without our knowing it.
Okay, so
And
snapshot by snapshot is fine. You would need like a complete revision history.
I don't need a complete revision.
Okay.
Just a snapshot. Meeting to
Just the
meeting.
differential between the last
Yeah.
one and this one.
Okay.
It also affects when we put an agenda together. It affects what's put on the, what we include in the agenda.
Yeah, I would suggest alternative methods if we needed more history, but it seems like that would be fine.
Brian, are you doing the QA&M update?
Yes. So correct these dates if I'm wrong, Kathleen, but the selective demo was cleared on Friday for us to review. We made it down, oh, sorry, Friday, October 4th. We made it down Monday, the 7th, with the structural engineer to review the findings. We documented the joist sizes, spacing, layout for both floors and the roof assembly. The roof assembly was a little bit of a shock. We were expecting more of the masonry walls to go all the way up to the underside of the roof decking. There were some that did extend further up than the ceiling line, but for the most part, the other roof framing is stick frame. I wouldn't say trusses, but a lot of just loose framing. The structural engineer has devised ways of accommodating the loads for the rooftop units and also the mechanical screening. So now it's just a means of implementing everything into the scope of work and coordinating with my details to make sure everything works. He believes that for the 25th, he'll be in good shape. He might have some detail sheets that he has to issue through addendum, but the bulk of the work will be documented in time for the drawings to go out to contractors. All my other consultants are well on the way for completing the CDs. I haven't heard anything of major concern other than the civil engineer who is responding to some comments from the health department. And he was, do you remember when we received those comments, John? It was last week, I believe.
They were received October 1st.
Okay. So he's well underway of incorporating those into his updated drawings. So no other real comments other than everyone's full steam ahead for the drawings ready on the 25th. If there's any technical comments, I think those might be better addressed at a separate meeting. But any big picture design comments, maybe we can discuss them now.
I think that's what the next, that's what the new agenda item is.
Oh,
Okay. But yes, we were prepared to do for the finishes, use the hardwood flooring. We, the abatement contractors did do some paint removal, but seeing how labor intensive it was, it's not cost feasible to do it widespread throughout the project. So we'll paint existing trim and casings.
So would you summarize that as the encapsulate method?
Do you want me to jump in, Brian?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so that's something that we can discuss. I mean, technically, this building is likely not going to fall under a daycare or a school under EPA and Connecticut Department of Public Health regulations. So we do not have to apply an encapsulant. We can use a regular paint, but if you want a little bit more protection to the substrate, encapsulants do last a little longer. Under the regulations, they actually do indicate that most liquid encapsulants have a 20 to 30-year warranty. So it's just something to think about, but there's no regulatory obligation to apply a liquid encapsulant. That would be a decision.
Okay.
The general scope of work will be to render intact for any loose and peeling paint, or plaster, and just repaint.
The other thing too is a lot of the liquid encapsulants don't come in the most attractive colors. So a lot of times you have different shades of white and then browns. So a lot of projects we work on, when a liquid encapsulant's applied, they put a different paint color over that because they're not happy with the color.
Does that include, are you including in this discussion the paint that's on the bricks and the brick surfaces throughout the building, or is that a separate method of dealing? You can deal with that in a different way.
We were discussing the wood components more from a historical standpoint. That's why there was a focus on that. There's some significant built-in cabinetry and some moldings and things of that nature. So that's what this study addressed.
So what about the paint on the bricks? The brick walls? Has that been determined yet?
Well, I don't believe we ever intended to do a full paint removal on those walls. It was going to be a render intact and repaint.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Which is fine. There's nothing that's, there's no regulatory requirement to go around and strip all of the paint in the building. So essentially we're going to go ahead with, a typical repainting operation. And then in the bid specifications, it will let the contractor know that they have OSHA. They're always going to have to abide by worker protection.
Is there any protection offered by traditional paint itself? So what is the
I'm
difference?
sorry, it got a little funky with the microphone. What was that?
Yeah, what is the difference between the encapsulant and just regular paint? Like what protection would regular paint provide?
So the encapsulant is a little different chemical makeup. It can withstand even more different temperatures and impact. So it's typically applied at a thicker mill. So if you have impact to those surfaces, you know, somebody bumps into it, it can withstand things a little bit better than a normal paint, which is usually a different chemical composition and is applied at a thinner mill. There's only a few products that are actually approved by EPA and the Connecticut Department of Public Health when you're really involved in more of a lead abatement setting where you have to do paint removals. And those products meet a specific standard to be able to withstand more than your average paint. So if you think about painting your garage concrete slab versus putting an epoxy, that's the difference.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is now the time to kind of dive a little bit further into those findings? I just wanted to ask about the floors.
I think,
Or should we hold that for the
is that under the
proposal?
11A? We're not ready to jump to 11A yet.
No, it's not.
Okay. I'll
It's
hold
not
that.
11A, it's different.
It could be different. It's just, when do you want to talk about that versus I have another question for QA&M before we wrap up with their update.
Then
Okay.
go ahead.
I was just reading over the IT discussion, in the meeting notes about the cameras and everything. Is there anything within that the committee should be aware of? Any larger changes, or were the police department and the IT satisfied with what was proposed?
Did John's meeting notes go out to the committee?
Yes,
Yes.
that's what I was
Okay.
referring to.
No, I think our IT guy, what he was proposing and what the police department wanted were pretty much in line with each other. So we weren't going to put cameras in every classroom, but just some major public areas and entrances.
Okay. And are those going to be the 180-degree cameras at the corners? of the building?
Depending on location.
Okay.
There was a question about the parking lot. Is that going to now be incorporated? The cameras in the parking lot?
I don't believe that was going to be incorporated into our scope of work.
Yeah, Brian, I think it was just the placement of the cameras essentially on the four corners of the building. And yeah, again, at the main entrance points. And then I believe the corner camera nearest the parking lot may be able to pick up some of that, but there was not going to be additional cameras added for the parking lot itself. That's the question.
Yeah, we weren't going to put a camera at the parking lot entrance. We were having a camera at every building entrance just so nobody can open a door and let people in.
Right. So it says in the notes, it's 180-degree cameras be placed in each corner of the building exterior. So that really will give us a full round of the outside of the building, correct?
Correct.
Full
Yes.
coverage. And since the parking lot is adjacent to that, anybody who's parking is,
Yeah, but if somebody goes in and messes with the dumpster pad, we can't guarantee that you'll be able to identify that individual.
Do we have good eyes on the playground?
Yeah, so there is a camera, at the corner by the gym and the ball field, that corner, and then another by the building entrance. So part of the IT scope of work will be to model all the views. So you'll be able to see more or less exactly what the cameras will pick up.
Is the expectation that we're lighting the building all night long and the cameras work under those conditions, or is the expectation that we're shutting the lights off at some point and the cameras have night vision capability?
I believe the assumption was the building would be on, or there would be motion sensors. To activate everything.
So the motion sensors would activate both the lights and the cameras?
Common areas.
What does that mean? Sorry, I'm
I
not
don't- yeah.
connecting the dots here.
We're talking about the exterior of the building. If it's motion sensor, does the light and camera go on? Or is
Well,
the
you would have
24
site lighting for the parking lots and surroundings. Correct?
But that might
Yeah.
go off in the evening, like say at midnight.
That's what I'm asking. Are we expected to keep those lights on all night long?
All right, so I don't think the site lighting, I'll need to discuss that with my guys.
And not to,
That there may also be a wrench with ACA and some of the neighbors too, if we have to run floodlights all night long.
Well, the,
around the outside of the building.
are you specifying dark skies compliant?
Yes, yes.
right.
I mean,
That'll help. Prevents light.
I don't see how they do that with floodlights.
I don't know either. But
Yeah, if we could just get some clarity on sort of what the specifications are for both the parking lot and then the site lighting on the building, what that schedule for lighting is, so that we're aware and the police department is aware and.
well, do you have a preference? Would you rather be on a timer or a sensor to come on at night? And yeah, I
is
think
that
it would be in
something-
your best interest to stay on.
Is that something that can be programmed and adjusted later once Beach and Rec has sort of gotten into a schedule of how the building is occupied and special exception nights and things of that nature?
I
Just
believe
kind of-
yes.
So I have a question. You guys, were you the architects on the senior center?
Which senior center?
The Madison Senior Center? I think you were, like, I just would like to know if, what we should probably do is what is happening at the senior center should probably be a standard by which, because that is a community building, it's in downtown. I don't know if the lights stay on all night because I probably don't go past it any later than 10 or 11 o'clock at night. So I have no idea what's going on at 1 a.m. per se. But I think that maybe taking a look at how that's designed and how, if there's, lighting wise, because we do not want to be, it's also in a residential area, residential/commercial area, similar to what we have here downtown historic district. So we want to make sure that we're not, have these lights 24/7 and then we're having complaints and that's the only security is because the lights are on. That's why the cameras are working. If we need night cameras for nighttime, those are the types of things I think that need to go into some detail, because we do get complaints about lights being on overnight in different areas of town.
could you, and Brian, could you just,
So-
pretty far into the weeds at the moment. Could you just determine what that is and just, if you could summarize it or just bring it to the next meeting, when we have a meeting next week? That would be plenty of time.
Yep.
Yep.
Any other issues for the QAM report? Hearing none. We have a moment of, we have a space here for public comment. If there's someone online that would like to make a comment, please raise your hand. I'm seeing none. I don't-
Wait, hold on. We did
We did have somebody.
Can you do that again if you would like, and then I can try to
Here we go.
go. That,
So it's Maureen. Can you promote her to a panelist?
Also.
I think we can allow to, okay, promote to panelist. All right, Maureen, are you with us? Let me see if that didn't work.
Yep.
Here we go. Okay, great. I believe the general rule is to state your name and your address. And you are on mute currently.
Thank you. I'm Maureen Lopes at 25 Old Farms Road in Madison. The one question I have at this moment, as you're going in, although there's been a lot of conversation of which I'm interested, of the structural review that's been done in the building, discussion about the roof and paint and things like that. The only thing I hope that you'll also touch base on is going behind walls to look at what the inner structure looks like within the building. They're not necessarily load bearing, but what shape are they in, particularly where I understand there's been a lot of water damage. So that would be one thing I'd be looking for. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. I know that.
Yes, so the structural engineer did observe the existing terracotta block walls. There are a handful of locations where there is going to be some repairs that need to be made. But generally speaking, the walls are 99% in good condition. Some of the plaster will come off, and we will just add furring and new drywall. The plaster is not in good condition, but the block behind it is still has useful life.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Maureen, for your comment. Under new business, the discussion and vote on a proposal from Fuss and O'Neill for additional environmental consulting services based on the selected demolition. So I guess this is for Fuss and O'Neill to Kathleen to take it from there. Tell us about it and tell us why. And tell us what the additional dollars would be.
Okay, so
we
it's,
do have, or at least I have. I believe everybody would have a copy of the proposal.
okay, just didn't want to speak over you again. I apologize. So this is to modify our existing specifications. So we had submitted specifications in February, which essentially was the thought process that most of the asbestos would be removed from the building. But now, in being on board with the architect and Colliers in the last several months, we realized that this has now become more isolated removals to accommodate different trade work and to basically salvage a lot of the existing building materials in the building. So last Friday, we received MEP drawings from Quisenberry. So we're going to go through all of those, revise our entire scope based on the MEP plans. We're going to be adding in information based on what we just did for our, what I like to call like mini removals, mini abatements in the building to understand different site features regarding the wood floor, concrete floor. And then, as Brian noted, he's going to handle more of the structural architectural side. And then we're going to also be modifying to add language to make sure that there's cross-referencing between trades, because this is not going to be a complete gut. We are going to be having some abatement, and then we're going to have to make sure that it's properly relayed to the other trades, that they're going to need a certain level of asbestos awareness to include fasteners, hangers, anything that needs to be done for MEP work. There's also going to have to be language provided for painters to understand that there is lead in the paint, and they have OSHA requirements for taking off loose paint, repainting. So this is now becoming more of a means and method specification. And this proposal is to modify that to get it up to speed with the isolated removals and impacts of the overall scope.
So the question I have here is there a reason why we aren't abating the lead?
So with the current status of the building and then your future status, there's no requirement to abate lead paint. So if you wanted to proceed to abate lead paint, that would be a significant cost. That would be, driven by a higher level of due diligence than what's required by the regulations.
Okay.
When we conducted our work with the contractor to remove paint from some of the, what I'd like to call more sensitive surfaces or items that you would like to assure are properly salvaged and not damaged, it took them hours to just do one part of a door casing. It's very labor intensive.
So if we aren't removing lead, then would the proposal be to encapsulate, knowing that that's 20 or 30 years? And if we aren't going to encapsulate and we have, God forbid, a leak that comes through the walls and hits these overlaid painted areas, do we have a hazmat situation then with potential lead? When that repair has to happen, do we have to then treat it because we know that there's lead under that and that top layer?
You would need somebody with some level of lead awareness to understand the hazard. So again, because of your building use, I know it sounds a little bizarre, but from the regulatory standpoint, you do not have a building that is considered a school, a daycare, or housing that could have children under the age of 6. So it would not fall under a lead abatement requirement. It would not fall under an EPA renovation, repair, and paint requirement. It would fall under a contractor having some awareness training to be in compliance with OSHA, which would be worker safety related. Now,
Right,
if you have asbestos disturbed, that's a different scenario.
Okay, and are we removing the asbestos?
No, there's going to be a lot that remains in the building.
Please define a lot.
Most of it, I think at this point. So there's the plaster has asbestos in it. And there is also a fireproofing paper that is above the tin ceiling in the building. And we are removing whatever needs to be removed to accommodate the scope of work, and everything else will remain intact and be left in the building.
Kathleen,
This is
can you just speak to, that sounds scary to
Right.
people who are not used to abatement and standards of managing buildings with these type of materials in it. Can you just speak to the typical practices of sort of securing, encapsulating, known, existing, how it's logged, how facilities departments, you don't have to go into too much detail, but that this is a fairly common scenario for historic buildings.
It is. It's a very common scenario for a lot of buildings, not just historic. So essentially, if we were in a school setting, you would have what's called an asbestos management plan, but there's nothing to say that you can't have a management plan for your building as well. It's just that there's no regulatory requirement. But what that plan would be is it would let you know what remains in the building. So it could become a reference point in case you have, like you said, a future incident, or there needed to be some maintenance, or maybe you decide that you're going to add something to the building after it's in operation and functional for a couple of years. Maybe you're going to decide to add some lighting or, do some upgrades here and there. And so basically that plan would let you know, here's where is asbestos, and you would coordinate with an abatement contractor to remove what you would need to remove to accommodate your next trade work. So essentially, the Department of Public Health and EPA indicate that you can have asbestos in your buildings. There's nothing that says you have to rip everything out of your building, but it's about keeping intact asbestos in your building. So making sure that that material is in good condition. And so again, you can opt to have either a management plan or what we call an operations and maintenance plan, so that anybody that's involved in the facility or becomes involved in the facility has this reference document. And that reference document can be kept on site. You can have a hard copy on site. You can have it available through your website, where any, people can be given access. You can do a quick lookup. You can always call Fuss and O'Neill if you can't, if you don't understand the information or you're having a hard time translating it, to know if you're in that type of scenario. But that is an option. Again, there's nothing that requires it with what you're using the building for, but OSHA recommends it as an operations and maintenance plan, so that you can prevent any type of future exposure to either people using the building, working at the building, performing maintenance activities, subcontracted to perform services. It's all about safety.
So would that plan be would we be receiving that plan from you folks, from contract? How do we get that plan? Do we design, does the town create the plan? How does that work?
So if you wanted us to create that plan, we could provide you a scope and fee to give you an operations and maintenance plan after the abatement work has been completed to accommodate your renovation.
Okay. I don't know about anybody else on this committee, but I think that makes sense if we're not going to, especially if we're not going to encapsulate.
Joan, I think that's a decision that we can bring to the facilities, since they would be the one maintaining this building and continuing to maintain it. I do know that they have hazardous materials plans for a number of town buildings on file that they reference all the time, and they are the only ones that would be contracting work for this building. So it does make sense to put that into their scope of the building once we turn it over. I think our scope is pretty satisfied by the building of the building and the construction, and then it can move on to facilities for future management.
Yeah, my question to you is going to be, are there these guidelines for other buildings?
Absolutely.
The
Yep.
answer is yes.
And they, and to my knowledge, they're kept on site and also on file with the facilities department. And again, the facilities department is the only one that is booking services within this building, so they would be the only ones. They would be the first point of contact that would know what is where. And just to reiterate absolutely everything, even though there is asbestos in the plaster, as long as the plaster is fully intact, it is not at all friable. It is not dangerous. It's not in the air. It is fully contained.
So one last question, because I'm going to ask the stupid questions. Does it make sense for our committee to vote on it eventually, encapsulation versus painting? Is that something that we would do when we're reviewing the construction design documents or the things that are going out for bid? Or is that later on in the process?
Again, I think that's something that should be deferred to the facilities department in consultation with Beach and Recs as to how the future of the building could be used. But that would be, I think, something that facilities department should weigh in on and ultimately have the final decision in which way to go.
Well, actually, so
I'd like to know what they would recommend, I think.
I think we have to vote on this, which is the proposal, which sort of like cascades down. If someone really has an issue and would like to have it explained more fully, then we don't vote on this tonight.
I don't. Kathleen, would the inclusion of encapsulating the paint affect your proposal in any way if you did it one way or another?
No.
So I think we could still vote on the proposal.
Right,
And then-
right. No, we're talking future, like when we're sitting down saying, do we just paint or do we do the encapsulation and then paint over the encapsulation for safety purposes? And what kind of cost differential are we looking at, knowing that it's so labor intensive to peel this stuff off? Those are the numbers I would like to see, because that would be part of this budget. So I don't think it is part of the facilities. I do believe it's part of our committee to at least have that discussion. Because this has been a very hot topic amongst the community, and I think we want to make sure that we're comfortable with what is going to be in that building.
Kathleen, would it be at all difficult to isolate the encapsulation as an alternate?
That's
No,
what
I don't
was
think
thinking
so.
too.
I think that's fine. And then I think in terms of cost, if you get a cost for painting, I would double it for labor and then probably double supply costs because encapsulate's a lot more expensive than regular paint if you needed some type of estimate or opinion of cost on that.
So we can just include it in the bid documents as an alternate. And I'll work with Kathleen on the language for that. But is it, I'm assuming, two different encapsulants for plaster versus wood versus, any other surface?
Really the difference turns to exterior versus interior.
Okay.
That's
Perfect.
where you get quite the difference. So essentially we would be saying every surface that's currently painted would be getting encapsulation. That would be the alternate. It's a lot of paint.
Existing surface, new materials wouldn't need it. So,
Right.
Right.
Yeah, existing painted surfaces.
yes.
Right. I think it's just it's a good number to have when we're talking to the public and explaining decision-making process.
Yeah, and again, just know that there's nothing holding you to that in terms of a regulation,
right.
but I understand your level of due diligence, but just wanted to express that again. Okay.
So basically we can say we are following the law. If we want to go above and beyond what's required, this would be the cost. Boom. Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
One more question on the encapsulate. Is there any precedent for applying it to some surfaces and not others? So for instance, hallways and doorways and not ceilings, because you're worried more about contact with some surfaces, or is it typically the entire thing?
I would say that putting an encapsulant on a component you're going to save that's like a friction surface or needs to be closed or sealed becomes a problem because you build up the mill so much that, like, for example, one of your built-in units where you have like the glass doors, if you put encapsulant, it's going to build up the mill and they're probably not going to close. So it's a significant mill buildup. So I would say that's where it comes into play. And if you had some like window features, which I don't think we do in this one, or something that, you're opening or closing something, it creates a friction, a tension where you can't get it to close. That's one of the problems with encapsulant on moving components. I'd say that's the biggest problem.
Not only belabor the point too far, but is there a difference between porous surfaces and non-porous surfaces? Like, you're gonna get less scraped off than if you get water behind the surface, and then you start flaking the wood starts coming apart, or the paper starts coming apart in the ceiling. Are there differences along those lines?
Well, I don't believe we're not gonna be encapsulating like the tin ceiling because that doesn't have lead-based paint in the first place. So we would be just choosing components that have lead-based paint. And then in terms of prep, you do have to make sure, which is the same as when you paint with regular paint, that everything loose has been removed. You have a clean surface that, if you read the back of paint, a lot of times when we all paint, I don't paint a surface that meets the standard on the back of a paint can. They tell you that it's supposed to be dust free. And if you wipe it with your hand, like, it goes into all this depth, but that's exactly what it says for encapsulation. To be honest with you, it has to be stable surface. There can't be any loose paint, has to be free of all dust, debris, any buildup on the surface, and then you can apply it. But it's very similar to regular paint. That's the expectations of painting as well.
Then for a notable problem, are there any lead water pipes left, or?
We didn't test any drinking water or any water sources in the building.
The mechanicals are good.
Yeah, mechanicals are being gutted.
So we know, even if there's any lead pipe in there, it's
Gone.
Gone.
Or dead in the wall.
And I'm assuming the asbestos that are wrapped around those pipes are gonna be, that's part of our. If there is any of those.
Unless it's in a space that's not. If it's in a space that's concealed and you can't access, then it'll be abandoned in place. Like if there, some of the vertical shafts behind the grills, those are gonna be abandoned in place. But anything that's exposed is coming out.
Yeah, so if we need to, if there's plumbing work and there's gonna be exposed material, or there needs to be tie-ins or whatever the case is, there'll be removals to accommodate that work, but you're likely gonna have chases and runs behind walls that still have asbestos on them, because we're not gonna open up all those walls.
Right.
So it'll just be abandoned in place.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking the mechanical, when everything comes into that area, those areas that, you can see actually, so. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, if you can see it, it's coming out.
So everything that you all just discussed, I have to capture into a document, and that's what the proposal is for. So you're making my life a little easier here and explaining my services.
I don't know if you could do this. How many pounds or tons of asbestos were in that?
I didn't hear the end because Brian was chuckling. How many pounds of asbestos, what?
Pounds or tons of asbestos is in the building right now?
Probably a lot, because it's all the plaster, all the flooring.
Bricks.
No, we're good with bricks.
The bricks have, my understanding was the bricks have asbestos in them too, from the year that the bricks.
Not at this site. No.
Pardon?
We don't have asbestos in bricks at this site. I mean, there are some, really they're called fire blocks that were produced historically that can have asbestos in them, but we don't have anything in our red brick at the site.
Okay. But still, I mean, there are tons of asbestos.
You have a good amount in the building, that's for sure. I wouldn't start weighing it, because we might depress ourselves when we come up with that number.
Okay, let's not do that.
The thing is, has a lot of weight to it to begin with. And it doesn't take much of a percentage to get pretty high.
Mhm.
I don't know, it's just, I understand that it's common, I understand that it's controllable. It just having a little bit of a difficult time.
No, I understand.
And I know, I mean, there are plenty of houses in this, and we lived in a house that had plaster walls, and there's asbestos in that plaster. And there's asbestos in the paint in all of our houses, but all the houses.
I think the important thing for all of us, and this is why we're doing our due diligence and everything, is that once construction is done and everything is properly mitigated and removed, it is going to be a completely safe building for all public use and moving forward. So it's not a dangerous building. It is not going to be a danger. It's going to be fully encapsulated. The only time that it will be a problem is, again, if there is future construction work needed, and that's why you have the facilities team to come in and educate the trades as to where it is and make sure that the proper protocols are followed. Underline that fact. So should we vote on the proposal? Can I just, what's a general hourly breakdown for how many hours do you foresee?
I foresee our head inspector, assistant PM, who, Eric Cooley, he knows the building the best. Well, I would say better than I do. I'll put myself out there. Between that, pre-bid walkthrough, RFI responses and addendums, I assumed 30 hours of his time, 10 hours of my time to respond to, questions or addendums that we need to do, and also as final reviewer of the design documents. So that's the approximate timing. And then I have a little administrative time. They usually go through and button them up and make them look pretty.
I think that's an important part of this revision, is the pre-bid walkthrough, the RFI responses and the addendums, as Ann can attest to. On a project like this, about 50% of your RFI responses and questions are related to the hazardous materials. So they will be doing a heavy lift on responses for that.
So I'll move to approve if we're waiting for a motion.
I'll second.
I'll start the discussion with the question. Is this, are any increases still covered by the grant? Or is this now, does this now come out of the budget for, from our building construction budget?
I believe this is still coming from the Brownfield grant. I've sent this to Erin for her review. I haven't heard back yet for confirmation, but based on the previous scopes of work, which have been covered under the grant, I believe, this would qualify as well.
What does the grant had a top number for?
250,000. And
I
this,
don't know what, obviously this doesn't exceed that.
this would,
This brings it to 189.
175,000 has been expended to date. 176 of the 250.
And what is there additional being requested? Is that includes what's being requested now?
No. What's being requested now is the 13,300, so that would be added to the 175, $812.50 that's been expended so
That
far.
yields 189.
So 189 would be the total, including this amendment.
So this is our fourth amendment to this contract. Should we anticipate any additional?
Yes, for the oversight when the work actually starts. So for the consulting to conduct inspections of the work areas, perform the proper, excuse me, reoccupancy air sampling for safety, and to be in compliance with the regulations. So once I did write it in this addendum. I try to give you the path in my addendum so you know what's coming. So I did indicate in that addendum that we would provide our oversight fees once we know the contractor's schedule. So typically, once we know, the contractor says it's going to take us 2 months, I'm making this up, 2 months to do the work, we can then figure out our consulting fees based on their schedule.
Does that change because you have more or fewer site visits depending on their schedule?
Well, so it's a couple things. Sometimes you'll get bids in and the contractor goes at it full force and they have a really large crew. They have multiple areas going on at the same time, and we can get a lot done in a day. So we might be able to go to a site and look at 4 different work areas and clear them. We have other bids that could come in. The contractor sends a smaller crew and they're doing 1 work area a day. So a lot of it depends on the contractor's game plan for the site and how much we can fit in a day as a consultant. So we don't like to take guesses because we don't know how they're going to attack the building and how much manpower they're going to have. So the quicker they go, the more they build up and the more creative they are in creating larger work areas or, trying not to have so many mini work areas, the cheaper the consulting fees are. So we typically like to have a meeting with the contractor that you're going to choose, and we talk about their work plan, their logistics. What do they plan on doing in the building? And we try to encourage them to really streamline it and work smart, not hard. And that way you can hopefully save on Fuss and O'Neill being there so often.
I think that's appreciated.
Any other questions? Any comments? Dave, Dave Spurley, are you still available? Is he still on? Felicia?
I don't see him. I
Who
don't
are we
see
looking for?
Dave Stone.
I don't think Dave was ever on.
Dave wrote a message that he had to drop off. In the chat.
Yeah, we only have 4 panelists, so Joan is not on either.
Okay,
We still have a forum though, right?
yes.
So I believe Joan made a motion to approve.
Motion is seconded, we
I'll
went to
second it.
discussion. So all in favor, say aye. Aye. That, I heard three. Joan?
Joan
Trump's not up.
had to drop off too. I don't know what is happening with our internet connection.
She did report that she had a shaky connection.
Or
Yeah, 4.
Shaky.
Shaky connection.
Oh, okay. I think we're good.
11.A was just general discussion on high level review. I think there were 3 things that just kind of stood out to AJ and I that we wanted to kind of, we can have a longer off discussion with QA&M, but just to bring to the committee. The first would be the bathrooms. Just a general concern that there is a lack of bathrooms within the youth and family services suite. I don't know if that's been discussed programmatically with them, but if the intent is to give them privacy, if there's a large event going on in the theater and all of those bathrooms are taken up, there's no single stall bathrooms either downstairs in their counseling suites or upstairs in their office suites. So we thought that foreseeably could be a problem for privacy. We were sort of concerned with the site views of the screening of the mechanical units on the roof, especially as seen from the, what road is that? The, let's say, senior center approach across the baseball fields. If there's any way we can better understand that visually, and if there's any way we could make that look better visually now that we're losing the penthouse. Obviously, I think the roof structure findings will probably play into that. Do you anticipate that the units will have to move based on what was found in the roof structure findings, or are you just sort of
So
supplementing the
the
structure?
2 units are going to be located over the lounge, and that's always been the case because that's where we control the structure. If we had space to add the 3rd, we would. But those would be the ones that you would see from across the baseball field. So we were going to, screen those as best as possible, with the perspective of looking over the gym. A 6-foot screen would conceal pretty much the entire unit. I can talk to my team and see if we can send some renderings from further out to show you what it would look like.
Yeah, ideally, I think we just want to wrap our heads around
what the view is gonna be from those positions.
the massing of it.
And maybe there are a few different options for how we can cover that to make it blend aesthetically with the building, more than at least what's shown in the renderings.
Well, the elevations don't really do you justice because those are, looking at it head on from an unrealistic angle.
Right.
Yeah.
So it may
yes.
be
Exaggerating an issue that isn't as bad as we think, but
Correct.
you do notice
when you look at the elevations.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think the third point of it was just as we were looking at the reception stage in the front theater area, we've done a great job putting in the ramp for accessibility from the back. Is there any way that stairs can be re-added in so that it can be accessible for the audience? Because we were thinking maximum flexibility of how that space is used. If you have something like an award ceremony, or a banquet or something like that, where you do have presenters on stage coming in and coming out, the easiest way to access it, instead of having to go out and all the way around up the ramp into the hall, if there's stairs that could be put on to the side, either cut into the stage, that wouldn't impact the usability of the stage, but would also give it flexibility for that.
I believe the solution to that is just a movable stair that you can temporarily put into place.
I don't think that's gonna be, just given everything we already have to store, I think we would be looking for more of a permanent solution for that. Because I do, again, our task is to make sure that this building has maximum flexibility for all different uses. I would anticipate that a sports banquet or an award ceremony would be a more frequent use than, say, a full-on theatrical ballet presentation. So I think part of our charge would be to make sure that that's incorporated.
Okay. I'll have to let me do a code research
Okay.
on that before I commit.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. I think those were our high level big concerns. Oh, the last one.
I think just more of a question. It would be good to see where the numbers are in your heads about occupancy during certain events. So like a theatrical presentation in the backstage, for example, sort of how are you designing the building for occupancy in like a high load scenario, right? So we've got a big theater presentation going on and maybe one or two other events. What does the number of occupants look like from your perspective? So we can get a sense of, how the building is being utilized.
So almost just a seating count.
Yeah, just general capacity. Are we figuring 200 people in the building max, 500 people in the building max? What does that number look like?
Yeah, so we have code plans, which is the absolute worst case scenario, where every room in the building is occupied and worst case scenario simultaneous. And we've been working with the fire marshal on that. A lot of those assumptions are very unrealistic.
Yeah, that's probably more extreme than what we're trying to wrap our heads around. We're trying to think about what does a big theater presentation look like in the backstage? Is that 100 people? Is that 500 people?
Yeah, so you just need a seating plan.
Yeah, that probably would get the answers that we need. I think that would help drive, our thought processes forward more.
Yeah, I think at one time we had one before we did the stage and move stuff around. So I'll double check. I want to say we had one somewhere, but it's probably needs to be updated.
Okay.
And you just want it for the two recital, the gym and the recital hall?
I think that's sufficient. Those are probably the biggest capacity spaces in the building, right?
Yeah, I think we have furniture plans for the majority of the building, in which case you can just count seats, but I can send those over if they're ready.
And then I think the last high level sort of comment we had is there's currently down in the community room reception hall, down in the lower level off of the kitchen. There's existing columns. We understand they are to remain. Is there any way that perhaps without adding a significant amount to the budget, they could be supported with sleeper ties or something so that you can maximize the flexibility of that room for large table layouts and things of that nature? Columns aren't ideal in a reception area.
That would be a huge undertaking. So unfortunately on the lower level, you don't have a whole lot of head height. It would be a major structural undertaking to do anything with that structure.
And the head height, the ceiling height is the main limiting factor there.
And the spans, it's directly underneath the recital or the main recital hall. So all the beams were originally sized to have the column spacing. So if we do anything to that, the whole structural system is no longer functioning.
Okay.
All right.
Worth asking. I don't think worth digging into further, knowing that it will be a significant cost for not a priority space. Okay. I think those were the high level comments. As I said, I'm kind of going through and just making notes, or questions, and I'll send those over and we can just have a dialogue about those.
Sure.
Anything else? Anybody else have any comments? I don't. Okay. That actually takes us to the end of the agenda.
There's still public comment.
The public comment, end of our agenda here. Anything from any other issues that we might have skipped or missed or not covered, want to go back on? Okay. Last item, public comment. There's no one in the room, so if anybody on the Zoom meeting would like to make a comment, please raise your hand.
Seeing any? All right,
Seeing none,
going once, going twice.
seeing none, motion to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Please stop the recording.